Hey y'all, it's Sarah DeClerc with Ann Potter Baking. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we are going to learn how to make the perfect recipe royal icing. I've been making cookies for close to 8 years, and in my experience, the hardest thing to master to make your masterpieces look beautiful is the technique for the royal icing. So today we're going to learn how to do that and troubleshoot all sorts of problems so your cookies will look beautiful and be successful. Now, to make our icing, we want to add a 2-pound bag of powdered sugar to your mixer, and we want to do 1/3 cup of our favorite meringue powder. So what you want to do is you want to add the dry ingredients together in your mixer, and then you want to stir them on low to incorporate it together. I like to always put a clean dish towel over the top of my mixer. That way it keeps my workspace tidy and keeps the cloud of powdered sugar and meringue powder at bay. Okay, so now that that is stirred up, we can add 3/4 cup of room temperature water. Okay, and so once you add this to the mixer, you want to stir it together until it kind of comes together, and then we'll turn the mixer on medium-high. Now that you've added the water to your powdered sugar and meringue powder mixture, you want to beat it on medium-high for about 2 to 3 minutes until it becomes really creamy white and opaque and resembles a toothpaste-like texture. Okay, we're getting there. Now you might think that this is completely done, but I challenge you to whip it for about another minute or two until it forms really nice stiff peaks. And the reason why is because it'll hold its texture much better. And if you think about what is a meringue powder, it's an egg white substitute, dried egg whites. And when baking, if you've ever made like a pavlova or a meringue, you beat your egg whites until they're really stiff and stable. Now that our icing has come together, we are going to put it in a Tupperware container. That way you can store it in the refrigerator until you want to use it later, or you can work with it immediately. But one thing that's really important is to always keep your icing covered, whether that's with a lid or a damp dish towel, because if air touches the icing, it'll seize up and it'll get kind of crusty on the top. So we're gonna put this in our nice handy Tupperware container. And you see how great and stiff this is? It almost resembles like toothpaste in texture, and that is the perfect consistency to outline your cookies and to do detail work like writing and floral designs. And it's also a really good consistency to store in the refrigerator. When I work with royal icing, I work with 2 textures of icing. 1, my outline, and 2, my flood. So this icing that we just mixed up in our mixer is what I would consider my outline icing. And it most closely resembles toothpaste in texture. So this icing is the texture that I like to use when I'm coloring my icing and just kind of the beginning stages of cookie decorating. So to color my icing, I like to get out what I think I'm going to need for my outline and my flood, so my entire project, and I put it in a little mixing bowl. And I like to color it when it's in the outline and then thin to flood, because color matching is very, very hard to do. So I always just take out what I think I'm going to use for my cookie project and color it one time. Alright, so my preferred gel colors are Americolor brand. One reason, they have very little flavor. They come in this really great squeeze top bottle, so it's just real easy application. So we're going to stir this all up, and then once we have the color that we desire, we will add it to our tipless icing bags. In the past few years, I have turned to tipless icing bags and I've never looked back. But for those of you who use icing tips, that's great too. We all have our own different preferred techniques. Now that we have our color mixed up with our icing, we're going to put it into our tipless bags and also learn how to thin our icing to the perfect flood consistency. So I just use a small medium tipless bag and kind of put it in the glass just like this. And then I will add my desired amount that I want to use as my outline icing to this bag. And I just like to tie it off. just like this. Okay, so now that we have done our outline icing, we want to thin it to the perfect consistency for flood. And so the way you achieve the perfect flood consistency is by adding really small amounts of water until you achieve that. So what I like to do is just turn my sink on drip, just very light, just like that. And just add a little bit at a time until we achieve the perfect consistency. So what we're going for is an icing consistency that will flow through your tipless bag, but not too much. So you just add a little bit of water at a time. And kind of what I like to tell people is you're going for a shampoo consistency. And I tell this story in every single one of my classes. My mom was in town and she dropped in on one of my classes, and at this part of the class she raised her hand. She's like, well, Sarah, like everybody's shampoo is a different consistency. I was like, Mom, and granted she has really fine hair and really short hair, and so she washes her hair like once a week and she uses a really expensive shampoo. And I was like, Mom, I have a toddler, I have a new baby, and I work with sugar and icing for a living. So I wash my hair all the time. So I told her, I was like, Mom, we're going for a cheap shampoo like Pantene Pro V, Herbal Essences, like something that's affordable, and everybody knows that consistency. She was like, oh, okay. So it just kind of, that's what we're going for, people. Now that we have our flood consistency perfected, we need to put this in a tipless bag. Again, same setup as our outline icing. Just go ahead and pour it in your tipless bag, and then we will tie it off and be ready to go. Now that we have our icing in our bags, we are going to learn how to apply to a cookie. So if you're a newbie and just kind of learning how to use tipless bags, I always like to push the icing down as far as possible with my index finger and my thumb and kind of use that to hold the tension, and then use the rest of my hand and fingers as kind of like the trigger for, you know, pushing the icing out. So when you cut your tipless icing bags, everybody prefers different size tips, but my rule of thumb, I'm kind of going for almost a number 2 tip, which if you kind of look at the bag really close up, you can kind of explain it to a really dull number 2 pencil. You know, like when you were filling out Scantrons in school as a kid and it got really dull and you were tired of using it, kind of that diameter. So we're going to have our icing, and basically what you want to do is you just want to start by finding an edge of the cookie and just, you know, really even pressure on the icing bag and just hover right above the cookie. It sounds really counterintuitive, but the further up above a cookie you are with your icing line, the more control you have over where the icing falls. Now that we have outlined our cookie with our outline icing, we are going to flood. So this is our flood icing in this tipless bag. What I like to do is cut about 1/8 of an inch off of this tipless bag, and then we're ready to go. So I kind of let gravity do most of the work when I'm flooding my cookies, but what I like to do is go over the interior of the outline first. And you'll see, it flows, but not too much. And don't be worried if you don't butt the icing up to every square little inch and crevice, because this icing will flood together, hence the name. And if you cover every square inch of cookie with icing, you have the tendency to over flood. In my classes, I always joke with the people in there that everybody is either an overflooder or an underflooder. And you will know very fast within class which one you are. Now that our cookies have dried for about 20 to 30 minutes underneath the fan, they have enough of a crust to lay details over the top with our outline icing. So we're just going to start by adding some fun little floral detailing. Just some little scrolls, some little dots, and of course add some sprinkles because sprinkles make everything better. And then we're going to scroll our name. Again, I challenge you to really practice holding your icing bag above the cookie. This allows for better control. Here we go. Thank y'all so much for joining me today on learning how to make the perfect recipe of royal icing. Y'all can feel free to follow me on Instagram at Ann Potter Baking, on Facebook, message me, reach out, and let me know how y'all like these videos, or if you have any questions. I'm an open book, so y'all reach out and I'd love to chat with you more.